business there. It's amazing. I had actually been introduced to Priestess Hanera through my husband. Um, they're actually like second or third cousins, and he had showed me that she had relocated to Africa as well. And I was really excited about that. And at that time, I wasn't thinking about relocating, but I reconnecting spiritually to, where my ancestors were from, what they practiced, what their spirituality was. And I had found out that my great grandfather was a herbalist, right? And he had learned from his fathers from forever. So this had to come from Africa. So I was on a quest to figure out, who are we? Who am I? So I've been on a spiritual journey for about a little bit over a year as well. So in the same boat a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with the spirituality aspect of it. Like I started meditating a lot more last year and really starting to get in tune with, like you said, the spiritual realm of it and trying to figure out just my identity, you know what I mean? So it gets tough sometimes, but it's all about staying connected with self and your higher self and just your ancestors and just seeking the right guidance and having the right people along with you. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I can attest to that.
I'm definitely excited about this Zoom call though. I haven't done anything like this yet, so.
Nice. Yeah, this will be the first of many to come.
Oh.
Yeah. Have you listened to all the podcasts yet?
I haven't. This is my first time. I've watched a couple of her YouTube videos, but I just went to go follow her page. I didn't know that there was a podcast. I definitely have to get it.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Think
yeah.
then. Yeah. We're starting at episode 4, so you'll have a chance to go back through 1 through 3 and kind of get to know her.
Oh, good. Where can I find it? Is it on like Spotify or?
It's on Anchor.
Okay.
And I think on Spotify as well, but the main vein is Anchor.
Okay. So I can just download the app.
Mm-hmm. And then you can search for the Divine Feminine podcast, and you'll see that logo, and you'll know it's that one. They're about 38, 39, almost 40 episodes.
I'm excited. Oh, okay. Let me see. Anchor. Mm. Oh no. Hi. I'm on a call. So, okay. I want to.
Greetings, Shania. Greetings, Dara. Oh, hi.
Greetings. And is it the divine feminine or
I
different?
believe it is the Divine Feminine podcast. Yes, it's the Divine Feminine podcast.
I think I found it.
Okay, good.
Yay. Hey, you found that one.
Okay. We're just waiting for some others to come on. Just chatting a little bit. Dara, where are you calling in from?
I'm in East Africa.
Oh, wonderful. What country in East Africa are you calling from?
Tanzania.
Well, welcome, welcome.
Greetings, everyone. I'm back. Now, I see we had a couple people add in, and I know there's a couple more people joining. I don't want to go too far over 2 hours. You guys, anyone who's worked with me in different sessions, you know, after the 2 hour mark, I kind of fade. So I try to be aware of other people's energy as well. But I see that, how do you pronounce your name, dear? Is it Dira? Dara?
Thanks, it's Dara.
Dara. Now, we've been chatting in the group, and you were referred from a dear sister of mine on the East Coast. And so it's good. You just joined the chat last night, and you're on the discussion today. This is like divine timing for you because this is our first discussion. The podcast has been around for about 1.5 years. And out of all the content that we've collected and shared over this time, today is the first discussion. And so it was just, I was looking at those, you guys know I chopped that word up. The synchronicities, how they were coming together for you. So that's good. You'll have to share with me later, or maybe in the discussion, how this discussion goes for you. Okay, I'm going to get a couple people the link, and then after that we can get started. When we get started, I will share my screen, do the podcast, and I won't be talking as much. I've asked my dear, my daughter, my spiritual daughter, Ashley, to help moderate for me. But I just wanted to come on in the beginning and greet everyone, greet your ancestors, greet all the energy that you guys are bringing to the discussion. And then, of course, we'll speak and chat later. But to help, I'm losing my voice. So to help me, she is going to help facilitate. So I'm going to pass it on to her in just 1 second. Okay. Ashley, it's all you.
Okay, sorry I put my camera out. Hello, everyone. Greetings. Whew, I am sorry I'm out of breath. I was running up the stairs. My son is home today, and you know how it is, right, Jasmine? Okay, so welcome to the first Divine Feminine podcast discussion. Thank you for joining. We have people from all over the country and even international, so this is wonderful. Today we decided, or Priestess Hanera really decided that the podcasts have been out for a little bit over 1 year, and there have been a lot of discussion, a lot of questions, and a lot of, want and ask for more information regarding the podcast and sharing. So, Priestess Hanera thought that it would be wonderful to start a community around the Divine Feminine podcast, listen together, develop, some sort of sisterhood, and also answer and ask questions to each other and even directly to Priestess Hanera herself. So we are really thankful that Priestess Hanera is able to take some time to help us in our journeys and to really go into detail on a more intimate basis about some of the important topics in her podcast. So today, the format will be, we'll listen to the podcast together. During the podcast, you can enter any questions or thoughts that you have in the chat room. After the podcast is finished, we'll have a session where we'll do question and answer. Priestess Hanera can review or will review the questions that we have in the chat room and answer some of those questions directly. Afterwards, we can have an open discussion. I think this is best to spur a lot of, creativity and even, thought as far as how we take some of these lessons into our life on a daily basis. So we'll have that time to have some open discussion. So that's pretty much what this is. We will be having a podcast discussion at least once a month. And we will be going through the podcast from episode 4. So if you haven't heard any of the podcasts before, I encourage you to go back and listen to 1 through 3. It really gives you a good idea of who Priestess Hanera is, how she started her walk, some of the struggles and successes that she's had, and hopefully you can relate to some of those things through your walk. So I encourage you to listen back to those, but we're going to start at episode 4. And so we'll start there and we'll broadcast right now. I think Priestess Hanera, if you would, we can start listening to the podcast now.
So just so you, for everyone watching, just so you know, if you ever want to get to the podcast and you're not, say, a podcast listener, you can always go to the Divine Feminine website. So that's www.divinefeminine.com, and click on the hopefully this will work, guys, and click on the podcast tab on the top right hand corner, and all of the podcasts are listed there. So we're up to about 40 episodes right now. We're up to about 40 episodes. This is episode 4, and that's what I did this morning to just get to the podcast. So let's see. And you can see some of the topics: rites of passage, gender, sisterhood is a good one. And there we are, Ancestral Altar. Enjoy. Divine Feminine family, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's an easy way to start your podcast. It's free, and there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast straight from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so that it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money with your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one convenient place. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started.
Welcome to the Divine Feminine Podcast, where I am your host, Priestess Hanera Abunu. Here I support women in learning and applying the Divine Feminine principles into their lives. We talk about lifestyle, family, culture, and spirituality, all from a traditional African perspective. Welcome to the safe space. Come on in, come on in, come on in. Wherever you are welcome into this space and time right now. This is the Divine Feminine Podcast. And today, forgive the acoustics. I'm having to adjust to quarantine. So today I'm not in the studio, so the acoustics on this audio may be a little different than what I've delivered to you in the past. So forgive me for that. But just know that I'm committed to still giving you a word in this time. And this particular podcast today was driven more behind some of the comments and feedback that I've been getting from people online, and I wanted to take a moment and answer one of the questions that I've been getting. One second. And so one of the questions I received was, what is the importance of the Ancestral Altar? And that question is very timely. And so I thought I would take the opportunity and just cover it in a podcast, because that's what we do. So I received the question online, and you guys can feel free to do that. You can email me at divinefeminine.podcast@gmail.com. You guys can message me online, Instagram, on Facebook, and give me your questions. Give me your feedback on any of the episodes. And more importantly, wherever you are in your spiritual walk, in your journey, especially right now, you can reach out to me, and we have a conversation or dialogue about it. And so this particular question was important because of the time that we're in right now. And some of you are, wondering, what is an ancestral altar? What is all of that? So I was thinking, I said, well, we'll just break that down. We'll dissect it small bit by small bit, and really unfold what is meant by ancestral altar. Why do we have ancestral altars, and what's the benefit, and why is it necessary in this time, and why is the call, and how does that fit with last week's podcast as well? If you guys remember, if you haven't listened to episode 3, you should listen to episode 3, where we talked about the temples, and the name of it is Temple Speaks, and it's where the traditional temples in Africa kind of came together, the priests there, and released a statement. And that's important because right now our religious leaders don't have the answers. It's the priests, it's the shaman, it's the traditional indigenous leaders that we need to turn to. I am a priestess. There are other people trained like me, and I come from temples that are rooted in the bellies of West Africa. And so I'm going to the elders, listening, hearing from the elders, and they listen to the earth and what the celestial bodies are saying, what the earth's energy is saying in this time. they are reading and listening and receiving their guidance from the earth and Almighty. And so I shared that message with you guys last week. So if you didn't listen to episode 2, you should take time and listen to episode 2. I'm sorry, that would be episode 3. Episode 2 and 3, but Temple Speak is episode 3. And this episode, going over the importance of an ancestral altar, is in relation to that. So let's kind of go into it. First, I'd like to, for those who, maybe are new on their spiritual walk, we want to kind of go through, what is an ancestor? Because some people may not know exactly. And, an ancestor is a descendant of yours, or you descend from that person. So it's a person who you share their blood. It is a relative of yours that precedes you. And normally when we talk about ancestor, we're talking about at least a generation above your grandparents. But it could, be anyone who has passed away. For the sake of this discussion, we'll say that ancestor is anyone who has transitioned this realm and passed on. Those of you who may be more spiritually advanced, you may have a deeper understanding. So remember that this is just for those on a basic level who are trying to understand the whole concept of ancestor and what we mean when we say ancestral altar. And so we're simply just talking about your relatives, your family members, the people whose blood you share. They pass down their blood, their traits, their physical features, their spiritual features. They passed all of those down to you, and you're carrying them right now. You share them. They are the same as you, and you are the same as them. Those are your ancestors. And why is it important to know who your ancestors are? This is also, a question that we need to ask ourselves and also know the answer to. It's important for us to know our ancestors because it gives us help in understanding ourselves, right? On your spiritual journey, it's all about raising your quality and fulfilling your destiny and becoming who you were here and who you are supposed to be, and raising the quality of your blood. And how do you do that? How do you do that if you first don't know who you are? Knowing your ancestry helps to give you a sense of stability. It helps to stabilize you in this world. Where we come from is important, and I'm talking about, the people in which we come from. Talking about, starting with our mother, starting with our father, knowing who our mother is and knowing who our father is important, because those are our first direct parents, right? Knowing all of their characteristics, the traits that we got from them, all of the history and stories that come with knowing your mother and your father, having their blessing. That's important. And then we go above them to their parents, the grandparents, knowing and understanding your family and where you come from helps you to understand you. All of the characteristics of your blood. Do you guys have a pointy nose? Do you guys have a wide nose? What is your temperament? What is your pedigree? What is your body structure? All of those are important, because we're in this life and we're moving about and we become encountered with other human beings and they look different than us. They move different than us. And how does that, do we feel confident in the skin and the body that we're in? Do we feel confident in the skills and the abilities that we have? That it's important to know who you are, because as you move about in this life, it will help give you stability as you encounter others around you. It will give you the boldness and the confidence that you need, because you know whose shoulders you're standing on, right? So that also can echo out past your family into your ethnic group, your clan, your category of race, if you like to say. Where are you from? Every group of people has certain norms about them. They have certain ways that they move about in society. They have certain morals, their moral code, the way they worship the divine. All of those things may vary depending on where your family lineage is from. And that's important, to understand your culture, because it's a part of who you are. And I'm not talking about a culture, a new culture, or a culture that may be foreign to you. I'm talking about the culture that originally gave birth to your forefathers, right? And this is, some of us are adopted. Some of us only know one parent, or some of us don't know either parent, and that leaves us in a vulnerable state as human beings. It leaves us unstable in knowing who we are. And so we have to set about the search of finding who we are, because that gives us our belonging, our stability, and more importantly, it starts to shape and mold our identity. And identity is important. Let's talk about identity for a moment. Identity is the fact of being. it's what a person is or what a thing is. How do you identify? What is used to identify you? Those components that make up your identity are critical. Knowing your identity as a human being is critical. And so understanding your family, knowing the names of your relatives, being able to go back as far back in generations as you can in your family tree is important. Even if you're a descendant of Africans that were brought here from Africa against their will, even if that is your history, you still have a right or obligation to your identity. And I would say that in this time and space, the pull on us to find our identity has heightened or increased. I would venture to say that with the way the world is going on now, more of us have been called or pulled or having the thoughts of, who am I? Where do I come from? Where do I get these traits from? How do the people that are like me respond? Where can I find others that are like me? That's important because we're living in unnatural times. So identity is important, and knowing your family history and the traits help you identify yourself. So you have the human being, the person. Knowing who you are as a person, in order to understand that, you must go outside of yourself, because you are not self-contained alone. You were created by two family lines, and many, many unseen things came together to create you. And so you must go outside of yourself, of your own thinking and what you say that you are or know, to understand your family, to be able to understand yourself. And then importantly, or moreover, I would say, going past your family, you have your culture, your clan, your nationality, your country, your language. All of these things help to know your identity. And in knowing your identity, one of the first, and it's not the only, but one of the first things you want to have in identifying yourself is a name. It's a name. What is your name? The name holds a person's identity. What do you think about yourself? What do you know about yourself? What are the characteristics about yourself? What are the traits? As a priest, I know this to be also what spirits walk with you. Right? All of these make up the human being's identity. And with the name, in building on the identity or knowing the identity, it is the first Well, let me say this. So I'll back up a little bit. Traditionally, the naming process, or when a family is welcoming a child, a man and a wife, they're welcoming a child. The welcoming process, traditionally, it's not the parents that come up with the name. And you may say, well, it's their child. Why wouldn't they come up with the name? Well, because traditionally, you want the name to be reflective of the identity of the child. So what characteristics is this child coming with? What mission are they coming with? What is it about their personality that will help them on this life? What are the components of this particular baby that they're coming with? That is what make up the name. So traditionally, when a child is born, they go to the priest, to their priest, and the priest reads the child's energy, reads the child's destiny. They can give the parents information about what that child's mission is, what they're here to do, some of the struggles the child will be having. They'll also help the child in understanding the energy that's coming. Tell me about this child that's in my womb. Is this a reincarnation of a previous relative? If so, who? Traditionally, you can go to a priest and they can give you that information. That information is vital to raising and supporting and the stability of a human being. And normally that information is sought out by the parents. Some information is given while the child is still in the womb. Other information won't be accessible or able to read until shortly after the child is born and has already transitioned into this world or this dimension and been born. And so it's with that information that the name is given. And so the name will represent the identity and the mission of that child. And so that's important. I believe it was on episode 2, I spoke about my names and what they meant briefly at the end of episode 2, I believe. And said with the different initiations I was going through, how a name was given or chosen, and that was part of the identity that I came with. Some of that was unique to the priesthood, but again, like I just explained about the human being, some of that information is given to the parents traditionally. And these are traditions that are in customs and cultural norms of African people and traditions all over that are still being upheld. They're still being respected and upheld. So if any of you have children out there or are pregnant and would like this information, you guys can reach out to me and I'll help you in getting that information for your young one. But the name in the identity. And so you see, it's not as simple as, going through Google and saying top 10 names for 2020. It's not as simple as, the mother and the father deliberating on, what they think the child should be called. Because honestly, every time you call that child's name, you are calling on the destiny and the energies of that child to stand up and to move forward and be present in their life. And so think of some of the names that we name our children in society today. Think of how we've come about naming the last 2 generations. How have we done that? I look at the cognacs and the Mercedes and some of these names, the Beyoncés, and what are we invoking on our children? Your name has to have meaning, and not a random meaning, right? Because words have concepts, and they hold meaning, just words themselves. So the name itself will have a concept and a meaning that it holds. But what concept and power are you calling out, or is called out every time your name is called? That's important. And traditionally, the naming of a person is held sacred, because all of the components of that child and their personality is in that name. Now this is, we're talking about identity as it relates to the first name, but this is also true with your family name. This is also true with your bloodline. This is why understanding your lineage, your forefathers, your ancestors, this is why it's so important. Because in knowing and understanding your blood and knowing the name of your bloodline, every time you call that name, it has a certain power that comes with it. There's a certain level of stability that comes with the human being when you know all of the components and what that name holds. So it's important, our bloodline and family names, and some of us, and let me just take a moment and say this, that, some of us, we don't have our original last names. We have names that were given to us, and they don't hold true to the origins of our clan. And so this is why it's important for us to keep expanding our family tree, expanding our knowledge of our ancestry, so we can get back to those roots. Now, even though you've been given a different name, right? Even though you have a different name, that name now, still hold it with understanding that I am a descendant of my father and my most recent ancestors, yes. And that comes with a certain level of honor and respect. And this is the name it's been attached to for the last 4 or 5 generations. But just have that fullness and understanding that prior to the last 400 years, my lineage goes back, and there's a bloodline and a clan that this bloodline ties to. And so when you call the name, say Jones, or Smith, or whatever that given last name is, you need to have the understanding that yes, you're talking about all of your direct ancestors that have held that last name for the last 400 years, but you're going way past that. And you're calling to your ancestry. So this is important, and I say this kind of jumping ahead, saying when you call it out, getting to the altar part, but just wanting to make clear, that we can't, that even though we have been given, say, our slave master's name, for those of us who have that in your history, it goes deeper than just the name. Yes, you have pride and respect in your forefathers and what was the identity that they had to take. But you, as the child now carrying the blood, have the obligation to go deeper and find the ancestry. And so that's where it becomes important. That's where the identity comes. And so when you learn your identity, when you learn your name, when you call out that name, it gives power. It gives power and stability to the human being. It calls out to all of the traits, features, the gifts that your blood has. That's what it calls out to. And that's important. You need to know that. A lot of times we get caught in the physical. Like, oh, I have my mother's eyes, or I have my father's complexion, or, my height comes from, this side or that side, but it goes deeper than that. There's physical components that put us together, but there's also the non-physical, the spiritual components that put us together. And those spiritual components are very complex, but they are with you as well. There's different spirits that make that up, different aspects of the human being that make you up on the unseen world, and it varies from bloodline to bloodline. And so I encourage each of you to start to put together your family tree, to start to collect your family photos of your relatives who have transitioned and are no longer in this realm, especially now, right? And I say especially now because we're in the month of April. We're in about mid-April right now, 2020, and our world is different than it's ever been. The world is experiencing pandemic is what they're calling it, so I'll call it that too. They're experiencing this outbreak of this coronavirus, which has taken several lives. I think at this point we're up to maybe 180,000 lives. You know, we're up to a really high, and this is just number of people who have suddenly and unexpectedly transitioned because of this plague, so to speak, that is on mankind right now. There's several more people, hundreds of thousands of people that are sick, and we're hoping for them to recover. But right now, there's a lot of people experiencing a tremendous amount of loss because their loved ones are transitioned. Their loved ones have passed away unexpectedly. And so this is important for us to understand how we have to keep our families' memory alive in order to help stabilize ourselves, right? So this talking about the ancestral altar is important for that. You know, for those of us who, while we're talking about the coronavirus and COVID-19, you know, those of us who have been fortunate enough to be at home and be healthy, we also have our own challenges that we're going through. We're at home. Many of us have lost our jobs, and it's put us in a predicament where we're having to reinvent ourselves. And I'm thankful that this is happening, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm thankful. Because it's exposing our vulnerabilities. It's exposing to each of us how far we've been removed from our purpose. And this is important. It's important. It's unfortunate, all the sickness and death. And I'm not making light of that. And I hope to help those who are grieving and who are mourning. So message me if you've been directly affected or had a loved one lost during this time, and I can help you. But right now, just transitioning to the population of people who are just quarantined. We're just quarantined, and we're affected because of job loss. And we're realizing just how dependent we've been on society, how dependent we've been on this system. We realize that quickly our whole lives can be shut down. Our cities can be shut down. Our means of supporting ourselves and our families can be just stopped. And that for some of us has us in a traumatized state. And that trauma is our vulnerability. And so I'm saying that exposing our vulnerability right now is good because it allows us time to work through and understand what's going on. Right now, we realize we need to find our skills. You know, many of us had jobs that were just, or 2 and 3 jobs, not specializing in any passion of ours, just getting by. And now that we don't have those jobs, what skills do we have? What talents can we tap into? Where have we been putting our focus? Has it been on the things that give us great pleasure? Has it been on the things that give us joy? Has it been on the things that are easy to us? I don't know. I don't think so. But now we have that opportunity to do that. And how is that important to understanding your identity and understanding your ancestors, and why having an ancestral altar is so important? Because it's through your bloodline and understanding the identity in which you come from that you learn those gifts, that you begin to seek out and hone in and develop those traits. Are you an artist? Do you have any creativity in you? I would pose that question. Are you an inventor? Can you put things together? Are you a seamstress? Are you a tradesman? Do you work good with your hands? Are you a farmer? Each of our bloodlines were given trades, or traits I should say, that are unique to them. And not only were you given the traits or unique abilities within your bloodline, but you were given the gifts to go with those traits. So, what does that look like? You would be given certain spiritual gifts to coincide with your natural gifts and what your bloodline is supposed to do. But have we been operating in that? Or have we given away self-mastery and self-development? And have we done away with what our forefathers have done, what our father did, what our grandfather and great-grandfathers did, what our mother and our great-grandmothers? Have we put away what we've seen the elders in our family do, to do something new, to do something different? Are we driven by money? Are we driven by material want? Many of us are sitting around now faced and challenged with that. Instead of living in our gifts and honing in on our natural God-given traits, we've traded it all in to be Uber drivers. We've traded it all in to be retail clerks. We've traded all of that in to work behind a desk expose ourselves to computer screens and radiation all day to do somebody else's work, to help them excel in their gift, to help them to give honor to their ancestors. But are we giving honor to our own ancestors? Are we giving honor to ourselves? Are we giving honor to the blood that we carry in doing what we've been doing, how we've been spending our time? That is for each of us to take a look at right now. And so that's why I say that the COVID-19 quarantine has caused us to go within, and is a good thing because it's exposing our vulnerabilities. Because had we taken those piano lessons and become the musician and the Greco that our family bloodline called for us to be, we would be able to thrive now. Had we been working the land and farming the way our ancestors and our bloodline had, we would be thriving now. Had we been working independently as entrepreneurs in a way that is self-sustaining with our gifts and traits, right now, we would be okay. We wouldn't be where we are today. And so this is okay. It's okay to be where we are, but we don't have to stay here. And I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you move past the fear. I'm here to help you to reconnect. I'm here to help guide you on this path. So don't take my words as judgment or as they're harsh or that I'm angry even, because I'm not. I just want to challenge you to think past your current situation. Challenge you to give more thought, deeper thought, as to how we can move through this situation past the energy that you're in right now, past the grief, past the fear, and we can process it and use it to better ourselves. And when I say ourselves, understand that you are not separate from your ancestors. So to better yourself is to affect your ancestors on the other dimension, on the other side. When I say ourselves, I'm meaning your forefathers. I'm meaning all those who have come before you. They're not separate from you. Do you think that genius that you have, that way about you that makes you unique to your friends, did you think you're the only person in your family that has that? No. There's an ancestor. There's a forefather who's come before you. There's a grandmother that you get that from. And so to raise your quality and to make you a better person is to raise the quality of your bloodline. And so that's when I'm here to help. And so how can we help? What can we do? We have to be mindful of where we're putting our focus. Where are we putting our energy? You know, part of exposing our vulnerabilities, we have to be honest. And that in that analysis is, where has our energy been? Where have we been focused? Have we been focused on work? And is it a work that serves us? Is it my natural gifts and talents? Have we just been existing and we haven't been putting our energy into anything? Maybe video games or social media, or maybe we've been putting all of our energy into our mates and not into ourselves. Maybe we've been putting all of our energy into even our children and not into ourselves. You have to be aware of where you're putting your focus. And you have to start focusing on yourself more. Now, what do I mean by that? Am I talking or trying to create these egotistical beings? No. I want you to understand your identity. And in order to do that, you have to get to know yourself. Do you know what you like? Do you know what you don't like? Some of us, we wait for the TV to tell us what we like. We wait for our friends to say what they want to order, and then we'll just have the same thing. Some of us don't feel comfortable in having our own identity. Some of us don't feel comfortable or confident in having our own judgment and way of wanting to be. And so we have to know that we get that from our family. So it's important to observe where you come from, your family members, your ancestry. To go back and pick what pieces up you can. And start from there. Because honestly, African people in America, you are no different. I am no different. We are no different than the person who only knows one parent. We are no different. As a collective, I'm speaking. As a collective, we are no different than the child who is adopted in that hunger and search for identity. Because as a collective, as a people, we have lost our identity. I will say our identity was taken from us generations ago. But now we have the ability to find our identity. So whether you know both of your parents and can go back 8 to 10 generations, or whether you don't know either parent, whether you know one parent but nothing else, or whether you know some relatives but not much. Whatever your story is, because each of our journeys is different, we still have the responsibility of knowing who we are and picking up the pieces from where we are. We have to become researchers. researchers on ourselves, researchers on our families, so inward and outward. You should be spending time with yourself. A lot of us in quarantine, we should be taking this time to be quiet and to find out what we like and to research ourselves, to understand ourselves. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. Hey, I'm pretty good at drawing. I didn't realize that. I'm really drawn to music. Why is that? I want to explore that more. It's time for us to take advantage of the shift and to align ourselves with the shift. So nature is now calling. Our ancestors are now calling out. And it's time for us to align ourselves. And the first step to aligning ourselves with nature, you guessed it, is to align yourself with yourself. And yourself is your ancestors. To truly understand who you are, what gifts and abilities do I come with? What gifts and abilities did my forefathers have? And you can start with your parents. What did they have? Each of us, our journey is going to be different. But it'll help give us our spiritual makeup. It'll help give us our character, our different characteristics, our different gifts and traits, but it'll also uncover our vulnerabilities, where we can improve, where are our moral shortcomings. Those will be exposed to on this search while we're getting to know ourselves and aligning ourselves with nature. Essentially, when we talk about an ancestral altar, right? Because that's what this talk is about. When we talk about an ancestral altar, we're talking about what exactly? What does that look like in this physical domain? What does that look like in reality, right? Sometimes with spirituality, it's not practical. What does an ancestral altar look like in this through the lens of a pragmatic person? It's self-care. Self-care. To acknowledge and to practice taking care of yourself, to acknowledge that taking care of me and my ancestors is necessary. The process of preserving and improving your health, and this is mind, body, spirit. All of this is part of the basics of understanding why an ancestral altar is important, or what we talk about when we talk about having an ancestral altar. In African traditions, and this can be seen You know, I'm an African woman, and so I speak from an African perspective. However, traditions, indigenous people everywhere have certain common views that are the same. And this is one. Indigenous people everywhere acknowledge and respect and take care of those who came before them. They take care of the elders that came before them, starting with their parents. You know, and some of us have some traumas and some healing that we need to do in order for you to start moving in that energy, to be able to take care of your parents. But honestly, your parents came before you, and you have an obligation, according to your culture and your lineage and who you are as a human being, to do that. And so in African traditions, we acknowledge and respect and care for those who have come before us. Whether this is a senior student or a teacher, someone who has more knowledge than you, who's come before you on the spiritual path or journey. Whether this is, in this example, we're talking about our relatives, our parents, our grandparents. It is our obligation to take care of them. And this is also true about your ancestors. Now, don't think that just because they've transitioned and they're no longer able to be seen in this physical world, that releases you of the obligation of taking care of them. No. You should start taking care of those who come before you before they transition. And I know many of us on our spiritual journey, you know, this may be the first time that these concepts and have been brought to you. This may be the first time that you've heard such things. And that's okay, because this society has removed the ancestral spirit, has removed acknowledging ancestors from its culture and society. So this Western model is not in alignment with nature at all, because it skipped the very first step. The very first step to connecting to something in the unseen is to go through your blood, right? And I can give detail to later as to why that is so. Or if you'd like to know why that is so, and I can give you a personal message, then just message me and I'll reply. So we don't see ourselves as separate from our ancestors. We are our ancestors. So to have an ancestral altar is to have a place where you acknowledge yourself and everything that comes with you. And it's not separate from you. Your grandparents, grandmothers, fathers, they are you. You have all of their traits and abilities. You do the same things that they do. Some of the stories that you'll hear as you start to put together your family tree, some of those stories, you could see yourself in that, or you've done those things. And why is that? Because you guys share the same spiritual components. They've given it to you. So in acknowledging and taking care of them spiritually, you're also taking care of yourself. In traditions, we remember them. We give them offerings. And we do this in conjunction with taking care of ourselves, with preserving ourselves, preserving our health, protecting our well-being. We do all of this in acknowledging our ancestors and taking care of them. And what do we get in return? Because everything in existence is about an exchange of energy. Okay? So we're giving this energy up to those who have come before us. And what do we get in return? There's always an exchange. We get protection. We get guidance, wisdom, enlightenment, awareness, and of course alignment with the divine plan, because your ancestors are the key to accessing the divine, accessing God. They are your, as one scholar liked to call them, they are your angels, your messengers to the different divinities. And so because of that, they create that dialogue between you and the unseen world. Very, very important component. They also provide stability. They give the human being confidence. Knowing who you are and knowing that you have the support of those who have come before you, not just a belief, but a knowing, that gives a very, very strong confidence. It removes fear, any uncertainty or doubt, and it replaces it with courage and resilience. This is important. This is what we need right now. This is timely. And so I'll end the podcast here, but I will say, and we went a little over in this particular podcast. Normally I try to keep them at about an hour, but this was an important message that needed to come out, and I'm thankful for the question that was posed online. And so if you would like more information on an ancestral altar, what it looks like, what are the components of it, how do I start to put it together, what are the next steps, email me, message me on social media. I'd like to help you, definitely, to set up your altar, to guide you and teach you along that process, because there are things that need to be in place in your life with the self-care before that I suggest, before even embarking on creating your altar. And if you're listening and you already have an altar, but maybe your altar hasn't been activated, I can help you with activating your altar. I'm able to activate your altar. Or if you would like to go deeper, say you have your ancestral altar, but you've kind of plateaued and you don't know where to go from here. You have it, but what next? I can help you further go deeper into ancestral veneration. So today has been another podcast, another successful podcast with the Divine Feminine. This is episode 4. I appreciate you coming into this safe space, and I look forward to speaking to you again next week. Be well. Come join me in April in San Diego for a spiritual retreat weekend. Also, in July, we're going to Africa for a spiritual awakening. Get more information on both events at eventbrite.com.
Okay. So thank you for listening. That was really insightful. I didn't see many questions as we were going, so I guess this is a open discussion for whoever has any comment or question or anything to say. Please feel free.
It was very insightful. Thank you so much.
Yes, very insightful and very informative, and I appreciate it. I actually have a question regarding the Ancestral Altar. So last year, I started doing some research and reading books about the Orishas and things like that, and I did begin setting up an altar to give honor to the Orishas, but I discontinued doing it because I know a lot of people say that it's all about intention, but I didn't want to, I felt like I didn't have enough information and I didn't want to disrespect the culture, so I stopped doing it. And I just wanted to see how to get that back started up. How would I go about like contacting my ancestors and setting up an altar?
Okay, great. Good question. Um, so I would say, first off, thank you for answering the call that your ancestors gave you, right? Um, that beating on the inside, that push, that, aligning that you would see, or however things came about to where you started, researching and looking into the Orishas. Because in this time, that's what's happening. A lot of us are having those same moments. What I would suggest is that you start with an ancestral altar, right? The reason you start with an ancestral altar is, and I touched on it briefly in the podcast, and it was so, I'm going to get to your question, but I had to say this. I was listening to myself. For one, I don't think I talk that slow anymore. So thank you guys for suffering through like the first part of that. But a lot of what I said over a year ago is still kind of applicable now. I think we're kind of working through it, but some of us, the time is still very relevant, the things I was saying. So that was very something I took, and I was like, wow, okay, that was good. But to get to what I was going to say about your question about the altar, and I touched on it in the podcast briefly, is that you you cannot access the divine, right? Western culture, religion teaches you when you get on your knees, you go straight to God, right? If you go to someone in between God and you, they give you, a man's name, right? And you pick it. Is it Allah? Is it Jesus? I mean, those are the two major ones. And I'm not saying anything bad against religion, but this is what we've been indoctrinated with. This is our mindset, that when we get on our knees, we go directly to God. That's what we do. And when you start to study the science of your culture, right? When you start to study your African traditional ways, you realize the science behind that. There's more technicality between between you getting your words to the divine. One of which is your access point. You access existence, the divinities, through your ancestors. That is the way it goes up. That is the way you were created, right? You were created through a mother and a father, right? Every divinity that's in your bloodline, every entity, every spirit, every gift, every good thing that was given to your bloodline, to your mother, to your father, to your grandmothers, to your grandparents, all of that was given to them, right? And then you were birthed and it was given to you. So when you decide to go back up through that chain, you have to do it the same way. And this is part of the reason why having a connection with your mother and being in your mother's good graces, this is a key component a lot of people don't talk about, is so important, because the mother holds the spiritual component. And so, and this is the woman who held you for 9 months and gave birth to you. Right? And so I say, if you want to start your Orisha practice and you need to build up that, say commitment, that consistency, right? You start with your ancestral altar. And then from there, you expand. You do that out of respect. Even when you start to pray, and I keep saying this, and I need to teach a class on how to pray, right? Because a lot of us leave Christianity and we move to tradition, and we don't know, how to access, what words to use. And so sometimes we don't do it, or sometimes we just do it the old way, and so I say traditionally, when you go to first give honor, respect, and thank your ancestors, thank your mother and father, pray for your mother and father, their health, wealth. If they've transitioned, then you give honor, respect, and allegiance to them first, before you even go to even further up your ancestral line. And then after that, you go to the divinities, whatever divinity set you're going through, whether it's Orisha, Voodoo, Netaru, whatever spiritual sect you're praying to. And so, there was something in you that said, I want to do this, but I want to do it the right way. And so I would offer to you, start with your ancestral altar. Yeah. Did I answer your question, dear?
You did. And I'll probably, reach out to you separately about what's the right way to set it up and how to cleanse it, and things like that, and how to activate it. I heard you speak about that in the video as well, and you said that it was okay to email you. So I'll probably reach out to you and ask.
Okay, I'm here. Are there any other comments or questions? I know, Alexa, your mic was unmuted. Did you have anything you wanted to say? Were you guys able to draw together all of the different components and topics that I was bringing up in the podcast? I realized that in that podcast, I touched on a lot of different things. And they're really big subjects, but I touched on them briefly, and I tried to bring them all back to Ancestral Altar and how it was applicable. Was there anything that stood out to you, or maybe was confusing, or were you guys able to pull all of those concepts together?
Yeah, it was very interesting. I saw that that all of the components that you were talking about were things that we actually do. It's not something that that is far out and we can't get to it or can't access it or can't do it. We can do all those things that you were mentioning to help get ourselves better and to align ourselves with ourselves and to do various things. And so I'm just so grateful that you played that, because I didn't hear that one before, that episode.
Okay.
I liked how you brought everything together. I did have something that whenever you first started to talk about getting to know your identity, it kind of hit home for me because I know both my mom and my dad, but my son is growing up not knowing his dad. And so that kind of hit home for me on me. And I don't want to get emotional about it.
It's okay.
But on transitioning the knowledge onto him and teaching him how to learn about himself without knowing that part.
Now, without, I don't want to be too personal. You can share, what you want.
Oh no, I'm an open book, so it's fine. We can have an open discussion. I just try not to get emotional. It's kind of, I don't know.
I'm okay with it. Sometimes you have to get that out and you have to cleanse in order to move forward. We're women, we're emotional. We're the only gender that brings together all 4 elements every month in order to create. And so because you have everything in existence in you manifesting, that means you have a lot of emotions in you at different times. And we're, society tells us we need to manage our emotions, and we do, but there's also times that things need to flow, right? And so we have to be sensitive to that as women. This is a sisterhood first. Okay? And I can feel your energy. And if you don't cry, I might just, okay? So you come on. All right? So what I would ask you is there anything you can do? Has his father transitioned, or is there anything you can do to make sure his father is in his life at some point?
His father has not transitioned. He made the decision to walk away 2 weeks after he was born. So he was there all throughout the pregnancy. We were exclusive. We were living together. It's just that he was having his own struggles with his own identity. And, he struggled with drugs and alcohol. And we were working towards bettering himself. And I think he made the decision that he wasn't ready at 2 weeks after I had him. And I feel like he didn't want to be a burden, which to a certain extent, I appreciate him for thinking about that, because I do genuinely feel like that's what it is. That's why I don't hold any bitterness towards him. But I mean, I don't know how to get in contact with him. He did reach out to him, well, me, a couple years ago, and I suggested that we meet and come together, and I invited him to his birthday, and it's just, I don't know. I think he's just afraid. So I don't know if there's a way to get him involved. It's kind of like the ball is in his court.
Let me first say that I can feel your pain, and that's okay. It's okay to have those tears. You're not the only woman with that situation here in the West, right? There's people probably even on this call that share your same story. Okay, so you're amongst sisters. What I would offer as advice, and everything that I say, I come from a traditional standpoint, from an indigenous standpoint. For one, I commend you for standing there and raising your son. You didn't choose to do the same thing his father did. You're raising your baby, and that's what you should do. And know your place as a woman, right? You are your child's teacher. You are your child's educator. You are your child's healer, right? And you are the person who teaches your child all of their home training or family education, right? That's your responsibility. You are also the person who gives him his reverence for spirituality. And so in tying in the ancestral altar and all of those topics that we have today, I would say, in your words to your son, make sure you're always supportive of his father. Make sure you're always telling him the positives of his father. You're handsome just like your daddy. Oh, you look at you do just like your father. And I don't know, whatever you know about him, right? This is how you instill that pride into your child, right? When he starts to ask for his father, he will come, right? This is what you say. These are the words that you say. He will come. It's going to happen, right? Because that's what you want to happen. On the back end, you're doing your work. You're putting it in your altar. You're reaching out, not being pushy to him, but reaching out, being supportive, letting him know he's welcome. Your son asked about you, and sometimes if he's in his different space, right? Because like you said, he's figuring out life too, reach out to his mothers, to his mother, his sisters, their family, because a child can learn a lot about the mannerisms and characteristics of their blood and who they are by also being around other family members, right? So stay connected to his family if you can in that way, if that portal is open to you, and try to work within the women realm, the sisterhood realm, his mother, his sisters, and things like that. Different aunties, keep him connected. Okay, because after a while, guess what? His mama's gonna say, oh, Junior was over last weekend. Oh, his sisters say, me, where's these pictures coming from? Who is that? That's me and my nephew. It'll start to get to him. You understand? And so his blood that he has out there with your son, it'll call him too. And there'll be a part of his life where he wants his son. So don't give up hope. Like I said, that's why I asked if he transitioned. If he hasn't transitioned, then who knows what ancestors have in store. But allow him to go through his process. And right now, the important thing is that he has you. How old is the child?
He's 4. He'll be 5 in November.
Right now, he needs his mother. So it's fine. It's fine. You build him up to be strong now. You know, traditionally, the child is with the mother during this time anyway. It's not until they get older they really start going with the father and learning how to, you know, do whatever it is the family does, right? So don't feel like he's missing out. No, this is your time to groom him, to mold him, to shape his brain in the way he views the world and the way he views his father. When you need to cry, you cry to your sisters. You go to your elders. You go to your mother, to the women that you respect and look up to. You know, you don't do that in front of the child, because the child will automatically think, oh, someone hurt my mother and I need to choose sides. So who hurt my mother? My father hurt my mother. So you don't even want to put him in that psychological space, right? Why my mama's crying behind my daddy? You don't want to do that. So when you feel a moment or you need to be vulnerable, you go to yourself when it comes to him in that situation. But definitely build him up, your son. Tell him what you know about his father, that maybe he was good in, you know, sports in high school. Oh, you throw the ball just like your daddy, or you do a great job. You know, give him that reinforcement. You know, your father and all his aunties, you know, they're really good at this and this and this. I see you got that in you too, right? So just give him those words, and that will build up his confidence and build him up. I come from a family of, you know, this or that, you know. So, and it's whatever you know, how big or how small. So you're going to do that for his side, but you're also going to do that for your side. And when you build your ancestral altar, and I know we're going to talk about this offline, but this goes for, you know, all the women and anyone who's listening. When you build your ancestral altar, you know, one of the first things I have you do is, in addition to building your routine and building your consistency, is build your family tree. And so as the mother, it's your responsibility to give him your family tree, but also give him as much as you have about his father's family and family tree. So you have work to do, regardless to if he's around or present. What you have to do is surround yourself with support and women who can help you in this time and give you what you need. Okay? Because you still have the work to do as the mom. You're the teacher, you're the educator, you're the healer, you're all of those things. Your role doesn't change. And so build your family tree. What you know of his family tree, his full name, his mother's full name, his father's full name, however far back you can go, you let him know that too. And you teach him. My 6-year-old, this is a little bit about me. My 6-year-old, me and his father go through his family tree. And my 6-year-old can tell you all his grandmas and grandpa on both sides. And we ask, well, who is the father of your mom? And who is and no matter how we ask him, he knows this is what we should be teaching our children. This is something the West doesn't teach us to do. And we're lost. It should be, it gives us a sense of pride of who we are as children. You know who I come from? I'm a Broadway. I'm a this, I'm a that. We should have a sense of pride of who we are. And so right now, as you're building yourself, you build him too. Okay? I'm going to be looking for your message.
You'll receive it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Greetings, sisters. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I'm multitasking. That's why I've just put the picture up. But I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be with you all. And many things stood out to me. one thing that I'd like to ask about is you talked about the spiritual power coming from the mother, and I'm multicultural, and it's a little bit complicated because my mother's European, and so we had a very positive, healthy relationship. She even directed me towards many empowering African women, which for me, in my experience, has been rare with what I have seen with others in my position, even in my own family. But sometimes there's this wrestling that has been there because, like all other African people, I want to say all, but like many other African people, I've experienced so much racism, and directly in the family, as well as outside of the family. I respect all my bloodlines, all my lineages, all my honored ancestors. And I understand, I always say honored ancestors to distinguish those that I want to say are spiritually evolved and advanced enough to be able to really offer, because sometimes I feel like maybe some of them are still on their journey, and I don't know, I'm still learning a lot. But I just wanted to, if you could speak to how you spiritually navigate that. I've been on my own journey dealing with and learning and stuff and understanding, and I've definitely been blessed by my ancient African spiritual traditions through Ifa. But I'm just wondering what you have to say about it, or what anybody thinks about it, if anyone else is in that situation. Because of our shared history between Europeans and Africans, it can be so deep sometimes. So I'm just wondering if you could say a few words to that.
Okay. So if I understand you correctly, and I was drinking some of that lemongrass tea, so I want to make sure I got it right. If I understand you correctly, you're asking about speaking to the shared, like being biracial when it comes to spirituality and how to access the divine. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well,
Or
maybe my question's not clear, and it's just this topic that I'd like to have more conversation about. And I think that has something to do with my work in the world, my lineage, my spiritual mission. Even I really truly feel that I've come in this body at this time for a purpose, and even with the particular family I have and all of that, because I'm also part of the Black Indian story, which is a really important thing for America right now. So I'm speaking to reconnecting and establishing, I want to say, like our spiritual identity and our everything you talked about with the altar and what it's for, and our ancestors. And those of us, I know other African Americans at least, and other African diasporic people, we have white ancestry, and there's this tension between Europeans and Africans still. On a deeper spiritual level, maybe, we evolved past that. But obviously, we have also this tumultuous, experience together. And when it's a parent, and then thinking of ancestors, when it's a whole side of a family, just making sense and making peace with, how we approach that spiritually. Like, it's particularly because it's my mother, and I know the mitochondrial DNA is a thing, and I know that there's a spiritual lineage that connects all of us back to the divine. I know we are more than just our DNA, but I know that that's a very important part of us, our bloodlines and everything. And just anything that comes to mind, I guess. So I'm not going to ask any specific question. If anyone feels called to like say anything about it or speak anything of it, then now or later, just please share it with me. But I've just been making sense and making peace with what it means for me to be like Afrocentric, so to speak, and reconnect that way. But having not only European heritage and not being taught that from them, but also like African heritage that is really tied with Christianity. And I'm modern Christianity. And I'm really the only one that I'm aware of that is reaching back to my ancient African roots in this way, or my indigenous roots at all. And so just say anything that comes to me.
Okay. One thing I would say is that you cannot, I don't want to say you cannot, we should not deny or hate or any aspect of ourselves. It's who we are. And I think on our journey of self-discovery, a lot of us will have to deal with some of the ugly that has happened. And I like how you use the term, I'm at peace, or learning to be at peace with my life, right? When it comes to spirituality, you know, and I'm coming from an indigenous paradigm, we are human. That's it. We are human. And that's the race, the human race, right? Now, granted, the time and space we live in, it has been broken down in different ways. But the way we relate to existence, we relate as human beings. The rules that we have to follow are the rules that all human beings have to follow in existence. The principles of existence that govern over us, they're true for all humans. And so I know there's a lot of political agendas that would like to divide us and has divided us. And it sometimes prevents us from ascending to be able to see the bigger picture. But we have to be aware of it all, the macro and the micro, right? We have to be aware of the political agendas that are set against African people everywhere, right? And then and the powers that be and all of those things. And we have to be aware of our place in existence, but in that, right, who we are. But then we also have to know that politics is man-made. When it comes to spirituality and us accessing existence, those were set way before the governments were, right? And so when it comes to spirituality, when I talk about the mother having the spiritual power, doesn't matter if your mother is Caucasian, if she's Asian, if she's Indian, if she's African, she's the vessel, that the portal that was used to bring you through creation. And so it's because of that, she has a lot of spiritual influence over our lives. And this is every woman. And this is what I'm saying is a principle. So it's not exclusive to any one spiritual sect. It's more a principle in existence that's indigenous. And if you study different indigenous cultures, you'll realize we have certain similarities when it comes to interacting with the universe. And this is one of them. If you go and start to study, is that the mother has a lot of spiritual influence. And so it's good to be in your mother's good graces. It's good to take care of your mother. And a lot of times as children, and I think I said it in the podcast, you know, we have trauma or drama or issues we have to work through in order to be able to do that. But that's where the growth comes. And it's for the child to understand the parent. And it's for the child to change. It's not for the child to change the parent. And that's how the hierarchy of life goes, right? We can observe our elders and make decisions on how we will or will not live our life. But it is out of order of existence to correct or chastise our elders. And so that is what I would say about that. If you're a student of Ifa, or if you're a student of any tradition, it will, as you begin to learn under your teacher should be asking about your family life. At some point, it will come up. If there is some type of, say, anger in your mother's heart, or disappointment, or if there's a disconnection, it will affect you, and it'll come up in readings. It'll come up, say, if you try to access more power, whether you go through initiations, you go through Fa, or any other type of initiations, that blockage will come up, and you'll have to resolve that before moving forward. And so the best thing to do on a very simple and plain level is just make sure mama's happy, you know, and then know that your flow upward, there'll be no stagnation, right? Your access going up, there'll be no stagnation.
Thank you for your mature spiritual perspective. Yeah.
And if you want to talk further,
Africa.
let me know. We can handle it or talk about it offline, of course.
Sure, thank you.
And we're at 10:03. If anyone has any questions, we'll take maybe, you know, the last questions that everyone has. And after that, I don't want to keep you guys too long. I told you I don't do long meetings. After 2 hours, I start to fade. So, but I do want to make sure that everyone who has a question or a comment has an opportunity and the floor to be able to present.
That's a big cup.
It keeps me from getting like 2 servings. It's full too. Look, I had to drink it down.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you, in the West, we have lemongrass tea, and you can get it at Trader Joe's. You can get it at any like Whole Foods store or the indigenous Asian markets. You can go there, and it was introduced to us through Asian culture. It's really good with, it's calming, and it helps the blood flow and all of those things, has different healing principles. But it's also indigenous to Africa too. And so
what's it called?
In our traditional language in Benin, which is Fang, it's Fangbi is one of the traditional languages, and the word is Tima. And it, I see Eunice there. She's in Ghana. She's shaking her head. She's like, yeah. It's tima, and it grows just like grass, right? But it smells like lemon. It's a healing, soothing effect. And in Africa, we use it for everything. We use it for tea. We use it because if you guys don't know, all that seasoning that we do on our food, that comes from our blood, that comes from Africa. Everything we do, we season. And so even our water. And so when we use water for anything, a lot of it is seasoned with the tima first. And so there's porridges in the morning that we use, that we drink, cocoa. We'll boil the water with the tima, and then add the cocoa for flavor to give it some seasoning. I use it in my cream of wheat now. I use it for a lot of things. It's the base, right? A very basic. So coming to the West, I brought a whole bunch of it. So for the ladies on the call, if you guys want me to send you any tima, any lemongrass, just shoot me your address and I'll put you some in the mail. I have enough to share. You look at you, Eunice. You have it everywhere around you, but I'll send you some too. Now, Eunice, now tell me, you're in Ghana. Shout out to Ghana. Thank you for joining us all the way from Ghana. What is the traditional language that you guys speak there? And is it, what do you call lemongrass? Or what do you call tima?
We call it like lemongrass in English, but in Ga, we call it mainly the cows like go for grazing. They use it for grazing, so we call it like cow's grass, but in our local dialect is called abonua. Abonua ba. Abonua is lemon. Abonua. Abonua ba. Abonua. Abonua.
Abonua.
Yeah. ABONUA.
Okay.
Abonua.
And what is your traditional language? I didn't hear.
Ba.
I hope you guys were able to hear her. That was
Abonua ba. Abonua ba. Ba.
Thank you.
Leave is ba in my dialect. Abonua ba.
Abonua ba. And what is the name of your traditional language, of your dialect? What do you speak?
Ga.
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 Ga. Yes.
Ga.
We have so many dialects, but I speak like my father is Ga, my mom is half Ga, half Fanti.
Have fancy. Nice.
Yep.
We have to get back to that, right? We have to learn some traditional languages and get rid of our colonized
English.
language. Yes,
Yes.
English. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that, Eunice. All right. Were there any last comments or questions that anyone had before we end the discussion?
I just want to say thank you again for creating this safe space. It's so nice to finally get to be able to interact with you, and this was very healing for me, so thank you.
I'm sending you energy. You're welcome. Well, I will turn it over to Ashley for closing, but I will say thank you all for attending. Thank you all who were listening and going about your day. I hope that you receive the good energy that we have here in your personal space. I'm sending it out to you now, and you take it with you for the rest of your day. Hey, baby, how are you? Handsome self. Look at him.
He is like a beautiful mommy.
Yay. And I look forward to seeing everyone on the call the last Friday of next month. Okay? And hopefully we'll be able to invite others and we'll just grow as a sisterhood. But I'm going to turn my mic off now and let Ashley go ahead and close. Be well.
Okay, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for the great discussion. Thank you all for being very vulnerable. We really appreciate this. It's really helped us get our minds together. I went ahead and put the chat group link if anybody wants to share, to invite others to the chat group. We can continue to discuss this or any questions that come up on the chat room, in the chat room on WhatsApp. So please join if you're not already in there. Our next podcast discussion will be August 28th. So we will send all the information in the WhatsApp group. Yeah, I think that's good. And before everyone leaves, if possible, if you could leave your email address in the chat room, this will be helpful for us to share any other upcoming events, or reach out to you on a personal basis. If you could, or if you feel willing to put that email in the chat for this Zoom in the chat group, that would be great. And thank you all. It's great to meet everyone, and we'll see each other in the chat room and next discussion. Okay.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Bye, everybody. Nice meeting you all. Thank you, Ashley.
Nice meeting you too.
Yes.
Thank you.